There was a boy reading a book. There was like a rainbow in the background just for imagination. Math, like flashcards, trees, and his dog was actually on there who passed away at almost the exact same time. And they made this mural for him, and people who were close to him got to put around the outside just anything that they wanted to write to him. There was a clay tiles, and so we all got to just write whatever we wanted to, thanking him, things like that. But then even beyond that, the school then built in his name a performing arts center, because he loved the arts, and so they built for him this enormous performing arts center, which is just beautiful. And for me, he's just meant so much to me in my life. I said that's the name I want to go by.
Now tell me, Cameron, what was one of the most memorable, experiences? Say 20 years from now, when you're an old codger and you're looking back on your life and starting to approach your middle years, and you'll remember this immersion project in the urban areas of Sacramento. What memory are you probably going to be taking with you that you'll be able to 20 years from now say, wow, I remember when I was doing this? What memory will you have?
That's probably would be one of the hardest questions, because everything I'm going to remember. People that I met just blew me away. Can
you just take one person and tell me that?
Well,
I know we talked about Oliver last time, but you said
there's also
somebody else.
There's also probably one of the most important things that I would take away from this that was during one of our nightly reflections, and it was the nightly reflection after we were told that we weren't going to be homeless again, that we wouldn't be going into the park for a day again, or that we would be sleeping inside for the rest of the time, and that we would be doing service, because there's two parts of the immersion. There was the homeless immersion part, and then there was the service part. And at that nightly reflection, everybody was just so humbled by the people that we had met. People just blew us away with their stories. People telling us, I met people who had been a lawyer in Sacramento for 20 years. One man, someone who I believe...
Your parents are lawyers too.
Yes, and my mom's a lawyer and has been, I believe, for 19 years.
Wow.
So, I mean, I couldn't imagine my mom being on the street. So that's very humbling. I met a man who, like me, majored in psychology in college, had 163 IQ, and was an actor. He was even on Seinfeld for an episode. I mean, just people that you'd never expect are in this situation. So all of us were just talking about people who had met, who just completely shocked us with their stories. And all of us were just sitting in the dining room at this long table, and we're just sitting there listening to what each other had to say about people that they had met, and how much so that we were so excited to be able to now do service, but also how disappointed we were that we weren't able to live with these people for another day.
Because you kind of entered into their community.
Yeah, and they welcomed us so much. And everybody was just so welcoming to us. I mean, we were just taken aback. People, in fact, I didn't even show you this backpack here. This wasn't mine. This was Oliver's. This is Oliver's backpack. The very first day that we were there in the park, there was a group of Boy Scouts who made hygiene backpacks that had like towels and just toiletries in the backpack, and they were brand new backpacks or barely used. And Oliver won one. They gave away like 80 backpacks. Oliver won one, and he didn't need this backpack anymore, so he gave me his backpack. The psychologist, Mark, won a backpack, and he gave one of my friends a backpack. One of our friends, one of the boys who was on the immersion with us, won a backpack, because they gave out tickets when you got your lunch ticket each day. So, I mean, we were all just humbled by everything that we had been given, everything that we had also given them. And we're listening to one boy, his name was Mason, and he was talking about, just how he wanted to serve for the next 2 days, how he was so excited that he was going to serve. And we were given a prompt, but he couldn't think of anything to write. But he said what came into his head was the Christ has died, Christ is risen, Christ will come again. Now we say at Mass, every time we go to Mass. And he said that I couldn't think of anything, but that just came into my head. And suddenly, all I could think of was that Christ is alive, Christ is in prison, Christ needs to be fed. And he came up with that himself. And we just were, when he told us, everybody just had chills down their back. I mean, the theology behind it, that Christ is in the homeless that we have worked with, Christ is in everybody. Christ even worked with the poor, which we can see obviously in Luke. Christ ate with the poor. Christ, just everything, just.
So you were telling us about this young man who had this insight of Christ was died, Christ is risen, and then he finished that acclamation by saying,
Christ is alive, Christ is in prison, Christ needs to be fed. I mean, that's something that will live with me for the rest of my life, even though I wasn't the one who came up with it. To hear that from a 16-year-old boy, who you can tell the immersion has touched. I mean, that was the first time on the immersion that somebody had cried, and that was him. He was the one who said it. I mean, just the power behind his words had hit him so hard, and all of us were just sitting there who couldn't believe that someone at 16 years old could think of something that Christ, who has worked with everybody, especially and the poor as his most prominent, could put that, all of Christ's ideals into just 3 sentences that are a takeoff of what we say every day.
So it went from being something we say as a phrase to something that now is a real part of life experience for this young man. Okay, Cameron, I was going to ask you 2 more questions. One, let's see, what was the first question? You mentioned earlier, you said, what were the causes of homelessness and some of the possible solutions to it. Do you have any solutions that might help?
There are no immediate solutions, is what we figured out.
Why is that?
Homelessness is a problem that is faced everywhere, and there are, what most people don't notice, 2 different kinds of homelessness. There is one which is like urban homelessness, and there is world homelessness, which is like if you go to India or Africa, people who don't have a home because that's what they were born into and because their country cannot offer that to them. There is then urban homelessness, like Sacramento, where you see people who have millions of dollars and that's around them, are homeless people who have nothing. There's so much division in the country that there's something that we can do to help. That even though people won't want to do it, they don't want to give. Somebody who has $30 million doesn't want to give $15 million to help the homeless, because then they're saying, oh, I can't live the way I want to live. Well, these people can't live the way that they want to live because they don't have anything. When there's a quote that I love, when everybody has nothing, there's a lot to go around. Because when there is nothing, you can give nothing.